Okay. Welcome everyone to the City of Breezy Point Planning Commission meeting. I will call that meeting to order. Approval of the minutes. Everyone have a chance to review the minutes?
Page 3, the second paragraph. Should that be not exceed 1,600 square feet?
Sure. Yes.
Thank you, Carol. Anything else that anyone has found? If not, I would accept a motion for approval.
I'll motion that we approve the minutes as written. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion of the minutes? If not, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion passed. City Council Liaison Report. Councilman Bach.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Briefly, the chair and I attended a basic planning commission session at Little Falls at the invite of the administrator, and it was a superb meeting, a good refresher for me. And while it dealt in the basics, it was spot on, to use buzzwords they use today. But it was superb, excellent, right? And the guy was very, very good with 30 years of experience. So I think we'll be talking a little bit more about that down the road. Thank you.
Any questions of Councilman Bach?
Gary, did you want to talk about the council meeting? The liaison report from the council meeting?
Well, yes, thank you for reminding me, and I excuse the blanks there, like the deer in headlights. What is he talking about? Yes, I did. The council has sent back to you folks, and I discussed this with the chair here at the meeting down in Little Falls, some refinements, if you will, to the pod ordinance, and I think it speaks for itself, and they felt those were very important. Also, the previous mayor, John Weaver, had some opinions about that also. So that's all I had to say.
Okay. The council did pass the pod ordinance, added 3 conditions. Couldn't be any longer than 20 feet, couldn't be used as living quarters, and required a zoning permit. And so they did adopt that.
And if I may,
Sure.
Mr. Administrator, there was, again, as there has been in previous planning and zoning meetings and council meetings, talk about enforcement. And the 60-day and the permit provision in those corrections allows the zoning administrator to keep a track in his little computer, and when that permit's done, then if he sees fit, he can go out and check on it and enforce that 60-day rule. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Any questions on what the city council did with the pod ordinance? Carol?
No, I have a question about something else here. That lot 30, block 4, owner request, that was that switch those 2 lots, wasn't it, that we talked about?
Yeah,
Yes.
the council asked me to let the owner know, or ask her what she wanted, basically. And I did talk to her today on the phone. She wanted to understand her options, wanted to understand what it would cost to do improvements, those kinds of things. She's going to be gone over the winter. She said she'd get back to us in the spring.
Leave it for now.
Yep.
And there was a consensus, I think, from the council of just swap.
It wasn't set, but yeah, I think there probably was.
Some change swap lots and be done with it rather than paying
Sounds good.
for a lot.
Okay, we'll have 2 open forums, and we'll start with open forum number 1. We'll open forum number 1 Would anyone like to speak during open forum number 1? Okay, we'll close open forum number 1 and move to the next agenda item, which is consideration of a resolution.
Mr. Chairman?
I'm sorry.
We have a formal request to withdraw that rezoning application, so there is no action necessary. There is no further consideration necessary.
So we can take, we can strike agenda item E.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, agenda item F, a public hearing to consider a conditional use application of the Lees to construct a 624 square foot accessory structure addition. I will open that public forum and ask Gary or Joe if you could kind of give us an overview of that.
In your packet is a staff report regarding the conditional use permit application of Karen and Doug Lee at 9105 Osawatomie Road. Legal description is Lot 13, Block 1, First Addition to Sunset Strip. The zoning in that area is R2. The request is to construct a 26 by 24 addition to an existing 968 square foot accessory structure, so that the resulting accessory structure would be 1,600 square feet or less. The acreage of the piece of property that this is proposed to go on is 1.66 acres. Accessory structures of 1,600 square feet are allowable on parcels with a conditional use permit on parcels 2 acres or less in the R2 zone. Basically, it's pretty straightforward application. There's an existing accessory structure. We'd like to put an addition on that accessory structure because the accessory structure is going to be approximately 1,600 square feet. A conditional use permit will be required. Staff finds it's consistent with the comprehensive plan. It's consistent with the zoning ordinance. Accessory 1,600 square foot accessory structures are allowed with conditional use permits in the area. The staff is recommending that the CUP be approved. Recommending some conditions. Total accessory structure not to exceed 1,600 square feet. Accessory structure to be used for personal use only. Accessory structure not to exceed 15 feet in height. Siding to match the existing accessory structure, and the accessory structure to meet all setbacks as required in the zoning ordinance. Those are the conditions that we would recommend that be part of the approval of the CUP. The Lees are here. If you have any questions, I'm sure they would entertain any questions that you might have. Basically, the request does meet the terms of the ordinance.
Would you like to step up to the microphone and introduce yourself to us? And
I'm Doug Lee.
And I'm Karen Lee. So I've been coming up here for 59 years and
Wow.
can't wait to just do this little addition that we have. We brought pictures here to show you how it would look and match if you want to see any of that. But we wanted to match the cabin exactly like what he said, you know, same siding. When you come down the driveway, you see the log cabin. We wanted to see the same thing off the side of the garage as we add on to it. We want it a little bit staggered. It's 1,592 square feet. We've talked to all the neighbors on both sides. They've come over, we've kind of laid it out for them. And so we're,
And we've made it offset, so it's not
Like-
one straight line, you know, from the neighbor on the east side or the west side. So, and throw a couple windows in it for him. He's good with it, and the other neighbor's good with it. So we don't have any problem with neighbors.
Could we take a peek at
Absolutely.
your?
we have the 1.6 acres here, 1.66 acres with the cabin, and across the street, we have 23 acres, but that's ideal township, so the preference is to do what makes sense. This is the cabin.
Can everyone see? Yeah.
So this is a cabin, and here's the garage, so we're the.
She's not very good with directions.
I agree.
This basically is the north side of the garage, so that's the side we're gonna add on to. And it would, that picture there is just from the east. There's another one from the north. Here's looking at it. This would be the north side of the building we're gonna put it on. And it'd be offset 2 feet in this way. So that would be the step, and it would come over to this wall and stretch out 26 feet. And then on the east side, we're gonna do
I have those pictures of them.
we're gonna do a gable, similar to what we have on the cabin. Would be this coming off to the east,
When was the original cabin built?
2000.
Oh, so it's not that old.
Nice looking property.
Very nice.
Yeah, we built it in 2000.
We built it.
Seriously?
We had a contractor frame it, we did all the rest.
Nice.
Wow.
But we are hiring this out with.
So what, is this next door, or is this?
No,
That's
that's
it, that's
the
the
garage.
garage.
That's the
back part of
garage,
the
okay,
garage.
that you want to add to.
Yeah, there's a screen porch on that side, and we only have, this is only 24 by 26, so it's not a lot of, you know, we like to keep all our stuff inside, you know, so.
So it's for additional storage,
Absolutely,
basically.
yeah. Well, that's the plan, anyway.
Super.
Looks nice.
This is helpful, thank you.
Do you want to keep going?
No.
Thanks a lot.
Anything else that you think we need to know? I mean, that's very helpful, and we have the drawings in here. So.
We have great neighbors.
Are there any public statements? Any questions anyone has of the leads? Or Jerry?
Are you planning to start it this year?
They wanted to start the cement work. Because we have a guy that can do the cement work, and he's looking for work right now, so. If we can get going on that for winter, then the other contractors can plug away in it if they're slow or whatever.
Do it before the weather changes.
Since they were running out of time, so it doesn't hurt.
If there are no other questions, we'll close the public hearing and move to consideration and action on the conditional use application. Again, are there any questions of Jerry? If not, we have a resolution, but before we do this, and I forgot to mention this to you, Joe, the instructor at the training really emphasized how important it was that we review the criteria
Right.
before we make a decision. So I think we should do that very quickly, and that is contained in Jerry's memo to us, as usual. Am I correct? Yes. the findings?
Jerry's reviewed the first 4 that must be met,
Yes.
so you need to review the others.
The following must be considered, and I don't know that I have, is everyone following where I am? Okay. I don't think I need to read all of this, but let me ask you if you have any questions about A. Is that clear to everyone?
You're looking at the, what to consider or what must be met?
I'm actually looking now at what must be considered
Okay.
in our
Because
decision.
you've got A and both.
Yes, exactly, sorry about that. How about the,
Looks good.
C?
That's fine. Yeah. Always change.
And the following use does not require any additional public infrastructure. D?
Fine.
E? F? G? H? And I. Soon we'll have them all memorized.
How do we know there's not going to be any offensive orders up in the
Okay, there is a resolution for our consideration. Is anyone prepared to make a motion?
I would move resolution 1507 as stated.
Do we have the motion? Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Want to let Larry have this myself? Okay. We have a second. Discussion of that motion. Any discussion?
Pretty routine.
If not, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion passed. Get that concrete down.
Well, we still have nice warm weather.
You'll need to apply for a building permit now.
Thank you, folks. Yeah.
Good luck.
Next, we will have a public hearing, petition to rezone lots within Deacon's Lodge addition. We'll open that public hearing and ask Jerry for a staff review.
This is a rezoning request. The existing zoning of the property is R2. Proposed rezoning of the property is to resort commercial. These are 3 lots, 3 existing lots that are part of the Deacon's Lodge addition. They're located adjacent to Arnold Palmer Drive. Actually, it should say between Arnold Palmer Drive and the Deacon's Lodge Golf Course. The entrance to Deacon's Lodge Golf Course. There is not an existing address on any of those lots today because of the fact that there's no building permit, nor has there been any building on those lots. The applicant is White Birch. They recently purchased these lots. The properties have access to municipal sewer. The existing Land uses, to the north is golf course, to the east is R2, CUP, rental housing. To the west is golf course, and to the south is R3 residential. Based on the application, the applicant is seeking to rezone to allow for, through a conditional use, the construction of housing units to be used for vacation rentals more than 4 times per year. Conditional uses in an RC zone. The comprehensive plan encourages rental units in areas serviced by municipal service, municipal sewer, which this does have. The adjacent land use is resort commercial. Staff recommends approval of rezoning the property from medium density residential to resort commercial.
Any questions of Jerry?
Right on the top, it makes rezoning application 2015-02, it should probably be 07.
No, this is the second rezoning request this year.
Okay. Doesn't it say, oh, the resolution on the other sheet, so it says 1507.
We number the applications as we get them in each year. The resolutions that are before the planning commission are numbered based on how they've gone. So we've had many resolutions prior to this. The resolution number will not mirror the application number.
So it doesn't matter that the one we just approved for the lease also is 1502.
No, that was 1506.
That's a conditional use permit, though.
Okay, that's a whole other numbered system.
Yes.
You guys get it right.
The only way they'd be mirrored, the numbers would be mirrored if they were the first request of the year and the first resolution of the year.
Okay.
That's the only time that they'd be
Gotta throw a
mirrored.
hedge on that one. Okay,
He wiggled out of it.
I withdraw my question.
Yeah, there you go.
Jeff, would you have a statement?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jeff Johnson, representing White Birch. I really don't have anything to add. I guess the only thing that I had would be more in the line of a question. I came in and I met with Joe and Jerry, 3 weeks ago now, 2 weeks ago, something like that, on this one. And I asked about the association that's there, that is listed as R2. I don't think I heard anything back from them. They were going to research that and get back with either me or the commission here. I don't think I heard back from them as to whether that should stay as R2 or if that should be changed to RC as well. And they were going to research and see what the reasons were that it was what it was, I guess, basically. And so that would be my only thing. I don't really have anything to add on this particular one.
Sure.
We did try to do some research on it, and based on what we could find, we could not find anything that was definitive, that defined it whether it was part of the association or not. That's why we ran with the rezoning request, because that solved the problem. It was the easiest way to attack it without amending a conditional use PUD. This was the most straightforward way we could address your want and wish.
So then my only question then is, should the others be rezoned into an RC or should they be left as an R2? And that I don't have an answer to. It's just a question. I'm not saying it should or it shouldn't. It's just a question.
Our feeling right now is that it can remain as it is, and it's cleaner to do it this way than it is if the association isn't going to change, there's no sense changing it.
It's fine with us. I just had that question. That's it.
Thanks, Jeff.
Any questions for me?
Yes, any questions of Jeff? Guess not.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any public statements? If not, we'll close the public hearing and move to consideration of action on that rezoning application. Again, we have a resolution.
Just a point of clarification on the resolution. We got zones and uses mixed up on the whereas above in the middle. Adjacent properties are zoned as follows, and it says to the north golf course, it should be to the north, and to the south, or to the west, RC, resort commercial. We'll go ahead and make that correction.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions of Jerry or Joe? Would someone care to make a motion?
I would move on resolution 1508 for approval.
A motion, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion of the motion. Any discussion, Larry?
No,
Okay,
we discussed this last month.
good, yeah. If not, I'll call the question. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion passed.
Just a point of reference, this motion will go to council. Planning Commission can't make rezoning changes, so the council will act at the December 7th meeting.
Thank you, Jeff. Our favorite agenda item. A public hearing to consider an ordinance establishing rules and regulations for use of banners, streamers, etc., and all signage not considered permanent within the city of Breezy Point. I will open the public hearing. Ordinance.
I can do it.
I can imagine that you guys would have anything to add to this, but
Again, it's work in progress, back and forth between stakeholders and city council members and planning commission members. This is the fruits of many labors. And
meetings.
yeah, numerous meetings. It's pretty straightforward. It puts a maximum square footage sign on or a maximum square footage allowable on a banner. It puts some maximum numbers, and the changeable messages are addressed as far as freestanding signs, and they need to change every 30 days. All in all, it's here, it's before you for consideration in your recommendation to the city council. I'm sure that maybe a year from now, we might be talking about it again, but hopefully not. Staff would recommend that you approve the recommendation.
Any questions of Jerry or Joe? Any public statements? We'll close the public hearing and move to consideration for approval of that ordinance.
Is it approval or is it recommendation to the,
Recommend approval to the city council.
okay, I'll move that we recommend this to the city council.
We have a motion and a second. Motion by Jerry, second by Carol. Discussion of that motion? Any discussion? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion passed. Good for us.
Quit beating this dead horse.
I won't believe an agenda that doesn't have it on.
Well, Jerry said maybe a year from now.
You can see by the number, we've been working on it a while. 1502 was probably introduced in January or February. Should I move on to the next item?
Yes, discussion, narratives of zoning district and zoning conflict / issues.
At the last meeting, we talked a little bit about the council's directive to try to put together narratives for each of the zoning districts. And I went through the charts that you have in your code. We've got the land use chart, this new one that's horizontal, and then we also have this chart, which is your setbacks and other miscellaneous requirements, lot width and what have you, and did comparisons for each district. And I found some conflicts. The most notable is corner lots and right-of-way setbacks. Corner lots have a 20-foot setback. Right-of-way setback is either 30 or 35 feet, depending on the district and the whether it's a county right-of-way or a city right-of-way. Well, the definition for a corner lot is having two intersecting roadways, and so it's kind of like, what do we do with that? And then as we went through and analyzed the chart and looked at other options or concerns, I came up with other things that didn't quite jive with the chart and the written language between the two. For instance, many places in the chart we have accessory structures at 20 feet, but it requires a conditional use permit. So a regular regular height for an accessory building is 15 feet, but it's stated as 20. And so I listed these problems in each of the zones, and that's in your memo. There's a lot of material here, so don't get too excited about getting it all done at once. But I wanted you to just understand kind of the thinking of where we're going with this and what we're trying to accomplish. I then put together draft narratives for each of the districts. Within these narratives, I've got some strikeouts, and I've also got some bolds and additions that were brought in. And they kind of give you a sense of what was added or what was needed to be added for each of the districts. And finally, to try to simplify this, I put together a series of, I think it's 16 questions that we need to go through to try to nickel and dime away some of these issues and problems to get to the point where we can clean this all up and put it all together in one section. So I don't know, do you want to ask questions first before I get to my questions, or do you have any comments about what you see? For instance, another couple of things that we added was under prohibited or excluded uses, we put in addition to the following shown uses not listed as allowed, permitted, or conditional or interim, are prohibited. And then I just called out some things that may be more obvious or they could be questioned. But again, if they're not listed in the charts above the allowed, permitted, conditional, or interim, they're not allowed, period. You know, that kind of thing. And then we added a other type of language. Let's see if I can find it. Which allows some flexibility. I'm not finding the language. It's in the, excuse me. Similar uses. We added some language that allows similar uses to be considered. So if we have something that makes sense within a district, and I use the example of a brew pub being very similar to a restaurant. You know, it's not specifically listed as a brew pub in the chart, but yet it is a very similar use to a restaurant. And, you know, allowing that flexibility to occur within the ordinance. So we've got a little more to work with in terms of being real rigid in how we manage this. So first of all, I guess, is there any questions on kind of where I came from or where I'm going or any of the narrative type languages that I put together? This will be a work in progress. It'll probably take several months.
Any questions of Joe?
You raised the question of setbacks, for instance, 30-35, where you're appears to be a range, and I think your point is why are we using a range versus a number?
No. The point is, we have a setback for corners, and we have a setback from right-of-ways. And to have a corner, you have to have two right-of-ways by definition. And so you've got a conflict between 20 and 30. Some districts have a 35-foot setback, some have a 30-foot setback. But it's in every district. So which is it? Is the setback 20 feet or is it 30 feet?
What do you want it to be?
Well, that's why I'm talking to you guys.
What makes more sense from an administrative point of view?
Well, there's lots of ways you can look at this. I mean, some of your lots are small and it'd be better to have a smaller setback, but on the other hand, a setback from a right-of-way is a setback from a right-of-way. There's a purpose for that. It's easier probably to change it to just right-of-way and not have a corner setback, just because it's easier to administrate. Otherwise, how do you know what should be the 20-foot side and what should be the 30-foot side? You know, I made one suggestion that it could be, you know, the front door is the 30 or 35-foot setback and the side is the 30, but then you're going to have jogs with properties that go down the road, you know, so you're going to have a 20-foot sticking out on the corner, and then you're going to have a 35 or a 30-foot on the next one down. Does that make sense? And, you know, and this might be a really hard one to start with, but I mean, it was the most glaring thing that, you know, it's like, okay, what is it supposed to be? I know that well, we found building permits that have done it both ways.
Is it that detrimental to the lot owner to have one consistent number and don't make it different between a front door and a side door? If you just said the setback should be 30 feet or whatever, and just leave it that way for everybody.
Well, and it's moving forward, so what's past is past.
Yeah.
And so, you know, if you want to make it 30 or 35 feet, whatever the case may be, that's fine. You know, it's just that I need to remove then corner from the chart.
The issue is more a safety issue, and preserving sight lines so that people can see around corners and things like that. If you encroach on that corner, you do cause some hindrances to the site.
I think that's a good point. Just have it the same on both sides.
I think it would be the same too.
I think it should be the same.
Okay. It's the easiest one, it's the easiest way to go, I mean, if we're gonna make a change, so.
So is it going to be 30 or 35?
Well, it depends on the district, some are 30 and some are 35.
So we can leave that alone.
Yeah, we could leave that alone. County right-of-ways is typically 35 and cities is 30, but some are 30, just depends on the district. You know, and as you read through these, you can, you know, kind of look at the differences, or if you even go back to the chart in your code, you can see how they set up. So should we just, should I just wade through these questions and see if we've got an answer? Start with that?
Is that agreeable to everyone?
Okay. So number one, is the commission comfortable with changing the height requirements for accessory structures to match that of the land use chart, which is this horizontal one, to the 15 feet, not the 20 feet? It's 20 foot by a conditional use permit in most districts. Some are 25. There's one district, I believe, that starts at 20, but make that consistent. In other words, make this consistent or make this consistent, one or the other.
So did we just give somebody a 20, last time, did we give them a 20-foot accessory?
That was part of the conditional use permit. And yes, we can do that. There is a line in the land use chart for, if you look at the first page, accessory structure 15 to 20 feet in height. It's a conditional use in R1, R2, and an R3 zone. So you can certainly continue to do that, but the chart says 20 feet for those zones.
So would you recommend then that we have the chart say 15 to 20?
Yes, 15 and, okay. All right. The density requirements, I'd like to just remove them entirely. I mean, it's more a factor of putting together a subdivision rather than part of your zoning ordinance. And when you get into PUDs and some of the other districts with smaller lots, it doesn't make any sense. I think that the density is going to be dictated by lot sizes and widths and what have you, and it just doesn't make sense to continue to have that density requirement. Are you okay with removing that? Okay. Natural environmental lake standards were shown. We really didn't have a standard for natural environmental lakes in the code. We did in one section.
This is it, okay.
And they were added to a couple of districts because we had natural environmental lakes, but it wasn't recognized that there were those in the districts. And as such, I kind of had to make some guesses. And this one might be one of those things you need to just take a look at and make sure you're comfortable with, because there's a lot of numbers here. Like in the R2, I added them. R3, or excuse me, R1, they were added. I think that's probably it as terms of additional districts that were added. Yep. Should we just put that one on the hold for the time being? Take a look at those standards, or what do you think?
One question I had, I don't know, it's not even in this, but in your, I guess it's in all of them, you've got A is allowed uses, B is permitted uses, and C is conditional uses. Under B, would the term be uses requiring a permit?
We can certainly make that
Clearly
change.
permitted?
Sure, if you want to do that, we can make
No,
that change.
permitted, said we're permitted to do that, so it's vague.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think that's a good comment.
I agree with you.
It was just the way it was built. It's the way the code was structured from the get-go, but I think that's a good comment.
Yeah, we talked about that once before, I think.
Yeah.
Permit.
It has two meanings.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to give you time to look over the natural environmental lake standards. They're probably fine, but I just would like you to spend some extra time because there's a lot of numbers there. And if there's any that cause you questions, please get back to us at the next meeting. Okay, corner lots, we're going to go with right-of-way standards. Shoreline grading. In most of the districts, we require a conditional use permit for shoreline grading or working in the shoreline district. Under the DNR rules, we're supposed to administer things like sand beach blankets. And after Jerry and I did some calling and talking to the DNR and what have you, we found we weren't doing this correctly. You know, we were just relying on the DNR's rules saying it's okay. And we weren't taking out permits or developing permits. In addition, we work on like the public landing and the beach periodically throughout the summer. Technically, if you were to require a conditional use permit for each of those actions, we'd never get any work done in the summer. And so I would like to remove that standard from the conditional use permit, make it a permitted or requires a permit, and we'll put together a separate permit. Under the rules in the DNR, and I listed the section number, they have the standards in here. We'll put together a permit that says this is what you can do, this is what you can't do, these are the conditions with this permit. And then they take out a zoning permit and they've got it all there. And so I'd like to make that change. Okay, number 6. We have a number of districts that do not have a 3-foot setback for an accessory structure. Most of those districts are larger lot districts, acreage kind of districts. We don't have to have a 3-foot setback, but it is something we could consider. All the other districts have a setback from the side and the rear property line of 3 feet for a 12 or 10 by 12, 120 foot or less shed. What's the commission's feelings about that?
Should have a consistent setback.
3 feet? Is that, okay. In the chart, we have some interior and exterior side setbacks. We also have no side setbacks in a few districts. I don't really know what an exterior and interior side setback is. I listed one in the memo, the definition, which setback side exterior, and I'm not quite sure what to think of it. I mean, and when I compared it to the exterior or the interior, it didn't really look like there was any difference. I'm just wondering, can we just go to a side setback? Make it simple? Not worry about interior, exterior? Now, there is an area in this chart that talks about distance between buildings. I'd like to keep that, maintain that for those districts. But I think just going to a side setback, we'll have to establish that side setback in some districts that do not have it listed. But at least I know where you're headed on that particular item.
What is the, I'm a little confused as to what it actually means. Is this talking about a privacy fence or something like that? For the,
Frankly, I'm not real sure. Closest horizontal distance between the exterior boundary sideline and the foundation or wall of a structure. This setbacks takes precedence over setbacks interior lot where any conflict exists. And then it talks about the roof overhang. I'm not exactly sure how to interpret that.
okay.
Okay? So we're going to go to side setbacks, and we'll have to talk about those at the next get-together. Wetland setbacks. We recently granted a setback variance from the wetlands. In the code, in most places, we have a 30-foot setback and a 75-foot setback. 30 foot for old subdivisions, 75 for new subdivisions after March something of 2006, I believe. March 5th of 2002. So the setback from wetland after that date is 75 feet. We went back to the minutes and we could not find a reason for that. It was just changed. It was brought up. One of the commissioners asked about it, and it was just said, well, we're making that change, and that was the only explanation that was given in the minutes. I'm not really sure what to think of that. Crow Wing County's wetland setback is 15 feet. I don't know if you guys want to go back to 30, if you want to do something else, you want to think about it. 75 seems a little excessive, but on the other hand, maybe it's appropriate. I don't know what your thoughts are.
$75 is a big change from 15.
Yeah, but it's also a big change from 30.
Yeah.
It's- I think the intention was that 75 was for brand-new subdivisions, and you could design lots to accommodate that setback from the wetland and preserve the wetlands. The 30 was basically pre-existing lots that are typically smaller than what we're required to do today.
But if it's 15 for Crow Wing County, I can see where people get really confused about that when they're going to be, I mean, if they happen to look at Crow Wing County standards instead of ours. And I'm not saying 15 is right, I'm just saying, is that really confusing to somebody coming in to build?
Well, we periodically get comparisons. I mean, we did with that one wetland setback. I don't really care. I just would like some way to be consistent. I think we all have an appreciation for wetlands and wanting to preserve them. 15 feet probably gives you adequate distance, but 30 is okay too. It just seems a little odd that we've got the double standards.
I guess 15 seems awfully close to me.
Sure.
Yeah.
15 is too close and 75 is too far. 30 is just about right.
Probably. Why don't I put that on our list to talk about next time and give it some thought? Estate lots, residential working in the shore impact zones, it's an allowed use. I'm not quite sure why, but that's got to be changed to that permitted zoning permit that we're going to establish. And I'll bring you a copy or put something together for the next meeting on that too for you to review. Number 10, the natural environmental lakes parameter. I added it to resort commercial. The only place we have resort commercial that abuts a natural environmental lake is Deacon's Lodge, that property. It's, if you turn around, you can see it, the red on Lynch and Schaefer Lakes.
Yes.
That's the only place where resort commercial abuts those, and I would doubt seriously that we're going to see development where the golf course is. Someday we might, but at that point, you know, maybe we change the ordinance. But do you want to add it to that district or not? Do you see the point?
Leave it alone.
What's that?
I'd leave it alone, don't do anything.
You want to think about it and talk about it next time?
Yeah,
Okay.
because they are completely, well, there's, on that side, it is completely resort.
Yeah, it's completely golf course,
Of
yeah.
course, yeah.
You know, like I say, I doubt serious, I mean, the golf course would have to basically change for that to be an issue. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon.
If you don't mind me asking now, Joe,
Sure.
if we did include it, what does it do? The golf course can't, like, cut the trees?
No, it would have nothing, it's structure setbacks, that kind of
Okay,
stuff.
Okay,
Yeah, lot sizes and what have you.
okay.
You know, if the golf course was to go away, there'd probably be rezoning or there would be some changes, subdivision, we could deal with it in a different way. Why don't you just give that some thought? I'll bring that back next time too. In the airport district, we have a conditional use permit to grade less than 50 cubic yards of dirt. I gotta believe people should have some ability to move dirt around in their properties. Is that something we can change?
When a bulldozer comes in, how do you tell how much earth he's moved?
Well, 50 cubic yards is like 5 dump truckfuls. I mean, it's a pretty
You're
good
just
amount.
pushing it around, you can't keep track of it.
No, and it's grading, well, you're right, but I mean, that's more than you think it is. I mean,
Yeah.
but right now, it's a conditional use permit to do less than 50 cubic yards. It's a permitted use in any other district. Airport, for some reason, just was stuck at conditional use permit.
The bigger point is that if in fact it remains a conditional use permit, technically, someone could have to wait 2 months before they could get that permit approved to do some minor landscaping. That doesn't seem like it's practical.
There's that word, practical.
It's an important one.
I realize.
Okay,
It should be permitted, I would think.
okay. Accessory structures over 5,000 square feet. You know, it's a little hard to understand the way it's written in the chart, what they mean, but I think if you take the language that we've been using for less than 5,000 square feet, you'd have to have 5.74 acres to meet that 2% standard to get 5,000 square feet of accessory building. That's a big building, but is that something you're comfortable in leaving? Or do you want to amend that, or just clean up the language and leave it in the code?
Does it matter?
Mm-hmm. 5,000 square feet, as I put in the memo, is 50 by 100. It's a really good sized building.
Yeah, it's more like a barn.
Yes, it is.
A big word.
I mean, it's there now. We can leave it. I just need to clean up the language, but, you know, we got to questioning, well, do we really want these? And I can see maybe in a commercial district, you'd have a larger use. You know, maybe an agricultural or an urban reserve, you want to have a barn.
Yeah.
So maybe it's worth keeping in there, but it was just one of those things that just kind of jumped out at us as saying, well, maybe we should talk about this.
We did.
Yeah, I think
So
we
if you
need
cleaned
to.
up the language, what would you have to clean up?
Well, it's just the way it's written, it's hard to understand. I would just clean it up so it's easier to know what was needed. So that one's okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Vehicle sales, this one was really peculiar. In the chart, it says less than 3, more than 3, or more than, how does it say?
3 or less or more than 2.
Yeah. And so you've got this no man's land in one part of the code that's 3, and in another part of the code it's 4, and they don't match. Where is that? Yeah, in the chart it says less than 3, which is 2, or more than 3, which is 4. And then if you go into section 153.099, it says no more than 3, which is 4, and it says CUP is required for the sale of 3 or more. So we've got conflicting languages on 2 counts.
I don't think we should have more than 3. So
No,
however
I
you
don't.
clean it up.
Well, what would you prefer? I mean, you want it to be allowed for 2 or 3 for private sales?
Is this per year? Are we putting that
Yeah,
in there?
well, it is per year. And yes, I'll put that I mean, it says that in the 53099, but it doesn't in the chart.
The guy sells his car, how do you know about it?
Well, we don't. We just don't want a used car lot going on.
Yeah.
I mean, he could have
We need
2,
them small numbers if it looks like there's a.
he could
business
have
going
2
on.
out there at the same time. You know, if you allow 3, you could have 3 out there at the
Yeah.
same time.
Yeah, let's go with 2.
2.
Okay, and then the chart does not show every single use that is necessarily in all the districts. Do we want to expand the chart, leave the chart basically as it is, or eventually get rid of the chart? The chart is a handy reference tool, but it is one of those things that I don't want people to rely on it solely. We will put in language in the code that says that the narratives will take precedence. So there is no question that way, but sometimes people only look at this and not that.
Which would you think would be better to do?
I know that people like the chart, and so I'd like to probably keep the chart, but expanding the chart doesn't make sense. What do you guys think?
I think the chart is good.
But does it need to be expanded?
Yeah, that's the question.
If you start expanding it, then it gets to be too hard to say, well, you know, well, how come this isn't there or not? And you got flexibility, I guess, if you don't expand it.
Well, and we're going to have that language that allows similar uses. We're also going to have that language.
Because you
in
never
there.
could possibly come up with every possibility.
Right,
I would say don't expand it.
okay.
I agree.
We'll keep the chart, but not expand it.
Yes.
All right, so we'll come back at you the next time with the changes that you've shown. And I'll also come back with that permit language for working in the shore impact zone. And I guess we got a lot done tonight. I'm surprised.
Thank you, Joe.
You bet.
We are at other.
Where are we?
A letter from the Breezy Point Airport Preservation Group.
That didn't get included in your packet. We apologize for that, but I did make copies for you folks. There's a group of shareholders in the airport that have an interest in preserving all the lots there for hangars and pilots. And they would like to purchase lots from the city that the city owns. The map shows you the lots we do own. The 2 furthest south lots are a storm sewer pond and a lift station. Those can't be sold. The lot north of that has a possibility of being sold. It's upper land. It may or may not be suitable for sale or a hangar, but it's something we could at least consider. The northern 3 lots, which abut Ski Chalet out there, They look like they're high ground from the road, but you get off the road very far and it just drops off. It's a real steep grade there. If the airport group were to buy them and create access off a ski chalet, I think they'd be very buildable. But coming off the airport would be kind of tough to do. So anyway, we're going to probably talk about that at the next council meeting and see if the council wants to entertain the sale of those lots, and if so, we'll get an appraisal on them, and then they can consider whether or not they want to sell based on what we negotiate. Any questions about that? I think it would be worth your while. In that letter on, I think it's the second page, he's got a website address. If you go to that website and go on to, there's a tab called Developments. There's a video in there of it's an animated video of what they envision the airport to look like. They're talking about an airport museum and a gift shop and all kinds of stuff on this side. It's pretty interesting. It may not happen anytime soon, but I think it's worth looking at anyway.
Well, the fact of the matter is, the airport is certainly a plus in the city, and
Oh, yeah.
Without a
we
question.
need to protect it the best we can, and I can see their point. If we've got everybody storing
Yep.
whatever else there, it kind of takes away from those who might want to buy the land to use for their planes.
Sure. Yeah, he was kind of upset about somebody that just purchased a hangar and they're going to store cars in it. He collects cars.
Right.
Now,
Kind of like an airplane.
I guess.
And I assume there's nothing that can be done about that.
Not really. I mean, we allow storage in that district. I mean, I know at one time the airport had talked to us about putting in some very prohibitive language, and, you know, we talked about that as a planning commission 2 years ago, or was it 3?
3.
And decided that we have to allow people to keep their options open, because some of that's going to happen whether we wanted to or not. So, but if they control the property, they can put covenants on them, they can do what they feel is appropriate. As a city, we can't put those kind of covenants on, so.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
You know what I want to
Go
talk,
ahead.
you know what I want to talk about, don't you? Before we move on to open forum 2, and Jeff doesn't look like he wants to talk much. Joe, I would address this request to you. For as long as I've been sitting up here and out there and on planning commissions and councils, when you get a packet like this, as far as reference when your dissertation there for the last half hour, running back and forth looking for, and everybody's going, where the heck are we in here? It seems to me, and I've requested it I don't know how many times, that the clerk can number these pages, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way to the back, so when somebody's giving a talk on a, I can keep up with it, okay? And I would ask that, I'm making a formal request as a member of the council that the clerk take that upon herself to number our packets, both planning commission packets and council packets, just for the reason of simplicity and able to follow along, rather than sitting up there going like this, looking like, geez, what's the matter with that guy?
Well, in the council packets, and to a certain extent, these packets, we package each item separately. And typically, there aren't that many pages. Now, I
I
will,
understand that, but you get jumping back and forth, and if you could just say on page 23, and you're not going like this. It's so simple. It just befuddles me why we can't do that.
Well,
Does
it's not that
anybody
we-
else have a like opinion?
I think it would be easier, but I always thought we looked smarter when we're flipping pages, like we actually know what we're doing.
I appreciate your support, and I think there's other people here too, and I've heard Councilor Williams ask for that. We had a discussion at the last meeting, so consider this a formal request, boss, and I hope we can accomplish it.
Is part of the issue, Joe, that, you know, these things come in at different times and once they're running the packet, there's additions, subtractions?
Well, there is to some extent. I mean, that's not huge. You know, when we do the console packet, we have, on the website, we have by section, and then we also usually do a full page, and they've been numbered all the way through with that printing, that full thing. But some people can't load that on their computer because it's too much data, and so they end up doing the individual sections, and we typically don't number those for that reason, because, you know, then you'd get, you know, which packet, which number 3, that kind of thing. You know, we can sure give it a try. You know, I did give you a lot of paperwork tonight, and I admitted that full well. I mean,
I fumbled with it for years, Joe.
You know?
Maybe there's I'm abnormal. But
Well, I'm
I
not
just
saying you're
have a
abnormal.
HE double toothpicks time keeping track of where I am when I gotta go backwards and then I'm going over here. You always know right where you are. I don't.
well, and that's fine, I understand, but, you know, that's also why I add the questions at the end.
why you're the
So
big
you wouldn't
gun,
have to
too.
go back and forth.
Thank you very much. Well, please. Unless you want to make it a motion, Mr. Chair. Is that necessary?
No, we'll try to get it, we'll try to do that.
I appreciate that very much.
The other thing we're just going to mention very quickly is how helpful that training that Gary and I attended was. Very informative. The instructor did a really good job. He talked considerably about the role of the chair and actually scripted some things that hopefully I'll never have to use, but he recommended that when the room is full and you're dealing with a controversial issue, the scripting that he handed out is very helpful, and I can see that it would be. But thank you for encouraging the attendance. It was very helpful.
Was it put on by the league?
Government Training Service, actually.
GTS.
GTS, yeah. The training they attended was the role of the planning commissioner, and they also have other advanced, you know, numbers or sessions that they choose to. You folks can all go, it's not a problem. In fact, the tuition is paid for by the NJPA these days, and so it's free to the city.
They had a very nice, well, it was not really a luncheon, but it was very nice, nicely done. Cookies and cold cuts and a little break, but it was a superb. I was just riveted. I thought, oh geez, another one of these, you know, but I was just riveted at it. And as I mentioned with Joe, and we've had this talk many times, and I look back on my illustrious career here. When I first sat in these chairs as a planning commission member, 2 terms, wow. I mean, I was overwhelmed. I went home with my stomach tied in a knot, and did I do right, didn't I do right, and what kind of decisions we make. I would like to see personally, and I've tried to encourage this, rather than just throwing a new candidate to the wolves, like where, and I don't mean that derogatorily, but it's exactly what it is. Rather than throwing a new member, just here's your book and go read it. I think a basic class like that should be, in my opinion, mandatory. And go down, it's 3 hours, and it's a half-hour drive. And I asked Dottie, are you going to keep putting these types of, this planning? Oh yeah, she says, all through the year.
Yep.
So it's just a thought. It was very, very, very worthwhile.
Some states do require it. State of Michigan, if you're a planning commission member, you have to take that class. It's required.
And Peggy, I for the life of me can't figure out why we as a city have not required that before. It just befuddles me.
GTS puts on that particular one role of planning commission. It's their basic class, and they put it on at least 8 times a year.
Yes. Hallelujah.
In different locations.
Yes,
So
different locations.
I don't know how we address that, Joe. I certainly
Well-
can't demand anything.
Well, we've encouraged people to go, and, you know,
Well, that's why I say mandatory.
Okay, where do you start?
That's,
New members.
there's the encouragement.
Yep.
You will take this class in the first 6 months or 10 months. It's a requirement if you want to be a planning commission member. It would have really prepared, it would have helped me immensely. I wouldn't have, that's what it was for me.
And the city'd have to approve the, well, you're saying that LGPA.
NJPA pays the tuition now, so,
So, yeah, there's no cost, my gosh.
yep, no.
I just think we're doing our people a disservice as a city, not, here's the tool, and go get them. End of story.
I thought of you maybe during one section of the training, he really emphasized how important it is for us as a planning commission to use the standards in ordinances. And I remember you talking about that. He said if you want to stay out of trouble, rely on the standards.
No variance, you know, I mean, no, don't vary from the
Does that make
standard.
sense? to
Yeah,
you, Joe?
absolutely.
How are our efforts going to find a fifth commissioner?
We have 2 applications. The mayor said that he was going to telephone interview them, and I haven't heard from him since. He was in today, and I forgot to ask him, but he did take that upon himself to do that. He hopes to have an appointment made at the December meeting.
So maybe, Mr. Chair, if you and I can have some discussions with the administrator about this, and maybe it's a good time to start with the new kid on the block and make it optional for the folks sitting in the chairs now. They're all seasoned in now and seasoned veterans, so. But I think it's a real important thing to give them that tool, and from that person on. We'll have a chat with you.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
Sure.
I will open public forum number 2. Or open forum number 2, I'm sorry. Anything, Jeff, you have? Okay.
You sure? Yeah.
If not, I'll close open forum number 2 and call the meeting adjourned.
So be it. Good meeting, commissioners.
Go back and watch some debate, I guess.
Oh yeah, go back and watch the debates. Then get mad and you
I
can't
did too,
sleep
though,
tonight.
with the